The first time I ever played records to a crowd was at what became DIY's first kind of the birth of DIY, or first night, which happened to be Harry's birthday on the 23rd of November 1989. And in a way, I'd always been a kind of DJ anyway, my whole life, because I'd always had a load of records, and after you go to the pub, people come back to your house and you play this record, that record, you heard this new tune, whatever, but not dance tunes, like punk records and all sorts of, like Bottle Surfer, Sonic Youth, Black, whoever, reggae, loads of reggae. We used to go to loads of reggae blues parties you were familiar with. And then we just fell into this first night at this club called the Cool Cat in Nottingham. And this guy I knew, he just said, "You've got a record collection, good record collection. The DJ, he's not very good." So I booked a night. I booked this night, and you can play it. And I was horrified at the thought, but then kind of worked my way up my head around it. I agreed to do it, and as the date got nearer and nearer, I thought, I'll give it a go. And then, I hadn't long met Harry, and it turned out to be Harry's what birthday was it? It was 23rd birthday on the 23rd, the cosmic number. And I went to play. My original idea was to play a lot of punk records, but in this time, in a few months...
Things could have been so different.
Well, I'll tell you, I did play some, I'll come to it, but I went, we turned up on the night, and I actually played with Rick, Grace, who's now Grace, he DJ'd before, and it was kind of a relief that he was coming along, and he played some hip-hop, and I ended up sort of, I was becoming a house convert by this stage, and but I was adamant I was going to play some punk records, so I took some punk records along, and I'd never touched a set of decks in my life before. And yeah, it was the most mind-blowing night I've ever had, like every single person in there, and there was a total crazy mix of punks and all sorts, just going for it, just loving the music, and I love the music. And then I went at about sort of 11:30 or 12 or whatever. I thought I'd best drop those punk records that I promised all my punky mates, and I did, and totally cleared the dance floor, and that's when I decided punk and house and dance music don't really mix that well, So that was where I got the first buzz for it. But back in those days, it was like a new music, the dance music that was coming out at the time. It was all kind of fresh. It was all, it was all new style of music, the acid house. And you labelled it, you called us deep house, and that's kind of what we're known for. But I never really saw us. I just think we're a house dance sound system. We played all kind of, I used to play some techno, play all sorts. If it was groovy, it had soul, I'd play it. And back in those days, especially the free parties, obviously from that night I just explained I got the bug for it, and I came away from that night. I couldn't even mix a record. I didn't know how to mix a record. I was pressing, I was like playing one record. I had to ask the guy, the technician. I said, "How do these things work?" I would as this record finished, I would sort of press start on the next one, put the crossfader across, and you could hear it sort of speeding up. But people didn't care, they just loved the music. And anyway, and then we started playing outdoor parties, and that was the real thrill, and back in those days you could play, I remember the longest set I ever played was 14 hours, and I had two, really, 14 hours, yeah. And I had two milk, I used to have milk crates before record boxes, and they're quite big milk. And so a lot of records, but by the end of it I was so locked in, and so was everyone else. Totally locked in that, I didn't even have to look through my records. I just knew what the next record was going to put on. It was an incredible experience. Unfortunately, times changed. Everyone gets like an hour and a bit set or whatever, and it's different. But back then it was different. And DJs even played hip hop in early sets. And it was perfectly. Well, it's acceptable. Anyone can do it anyway. It's acceptable, but. It was quite common. Graham Park, I remember, used to play hip-hop. And Graham Park's a very early house DJ from Nottingham. And he was one of the trailblazers, really. And he played at the Underlater, and he played hip-hop. But yeah, there came a moment, I remember this moment. I can never forget this moment. I remember I used to shop for my records at a wicked shop in... Well, there's a couple of good shops in Nottingham, but there's one in particular called Arcade Records. And you used to go down to dingy basement, and the guy who served you, who just knew everything, he was just like had an encyclopedic knowledge of anything dance, you know. He was called Jonathan. He looked like he belonged in a heavy metal band, and like, and he would get really excited about, you know. I just got really involved. I loved the music, and he'd get really excited about, you know, what new tune had come in that he'd play you that he thought you'd love. And I remember going in one time and he goes, "Oh, there's this new awesome record, awesome, it's going to blow everyone away." And I don't know, for those of you who might know, heard the name Joey Beltram. It was a wicked producer. He's only a young guy in like from America, and he came out with this track called Mentasm, and as you can tell from the title, it was kind of nosebleed techno. It was the first techno record I'd ever heard. It was like Hoover noises. Just and he sort of said, and I just looked at it. I thought, no way, you know. And that was it was weird. It was a moment. It was the birth of art. And a week later, there was 100 copies of white labels of that kind of music, and it just birthed this new genre of kind of hardcore, whatever. And then that kind of divided again into sort of jungle and breakbeat, whatever. And it just, all these different subgenres sort of started appearing. But you know, I mean, we were, I guess, you know, like you called us deep house, and if you wanted to put a label to us, I guess that would be the one most apt. But we just, you know, just dance music with soul, you know, and that was the way. That was the music that kind of was the thread through all of our stuff that we ever did. It was just wherever we went in the country, we would go somewhere new, we'd do a party somewhere new, and you'd meet a few more people that would become another sort of branch in the collective, as you call it. And then that happened internationally as well, and that would include, you know, that would be people who were into the music, who did the same things themselves with the same kind of music, the same kind of vibe. Not like, it was all just a positive kind of vibe, you know, and it was just like a weird family that just kind of grew and grew all across the world, you know, and like you'd be welcome in 101 cities across the world, you know, and there would be people who, you know, knew about that, you know, DIY, inverted commas, or whatever. Or their version of DIY, and it was just like a big family, you know. And then DJing. I mean, we did club nights, and our club nights were pretty cool, weren't they? And they were great to DJ out. But DJing outside, you know, you can't beat it. For a start, the sound. If you got a good sound system, and we always believed in good quality sound, you know. So we invested in a good sound, a decent PA, and outside under the stars. A good sound system, and especially when it gets to that kind of twilight morning hour, you know, and it's just getting light, the sound is just amazing, you know, and it's really logged in, and it's just, I just remember this one party in particular, and it was just, you know, there was 300-400 people all spread out massively, you know, on the dance floor, and the sun was coming up, and there was this one guy, do you remember Sam, bald head, who's
don't ask me to remember.
You'd know him.
Tall Sam.
Yeah, tall Sam. And he was just such a cool guy, a nice guy and all that, and he was just dancing, and he had his hand up, and the sun was just coming up above his head, and I just thought, you know, that's a moment you can't recreate in a nightclub, you know. Yeah, it went really international. I mean, it got to the point where you sort of, you know, the music end of it, people would, you know, like, I'll give you an instance. There was a big DJ from America called DJ Pierre, who wrote one of the original Acid House tracks. Was it Future Tracks or whatever that was his, and you know, and like we just released our first single on Walk Records, and we were thinking we need someone to, you know, like, because we were pretty amateurish in our production values, you know, and it was an alright single, it was great, it was good, but we needed some different touch, you know, and so the network was, DJ Pierre accidentally ran up our studio one day, and I went down to the phone and I said, would you mind remixing our new record? And he was like, yeah, sure. For about $1,000, yeah, sure. And like, and he did, and he came over. I remember there was a pretty special moment, I think, it was after we had gone to Glastonbury in 1990. We just hired a van, a load of us, it was about 13, 14 of us in this van, Luton van. We took a set of decks. We managed to get to Glastonbury free. Don't know how, but we did. It was before the days of the mad fence around it. And then and we just we went into the traveller's tent. And we met this guy, this amazing guy called Chili Phil. He used to look after the Hawkwind pyramid stage. And he was like, does anyone want to do anything? And the Hawkwind aren't turning up till tomorrow, so if anyone wants to do anything in this tent, and we were like, well, we wouldn't mind, you know. And then just so happened this other guy turned up, and I've got a sound system. Does anyone have a use for my sound system? And it just all fell into place incredibly. And then we had this amazing night. I was still in the infancy of my DJing, and during the night, the Happy Mondays had been playing on the main stage. And then at about 4 in the morning, looked up, and there was Bez and Sean Ryder sort of losing it on the dance floor. And then the KLF come up to us, and we really like what you're doing. And we've got this tape of our new single. You know, have you got a tape deck there? I'm going to get a torch out. Yeah, there's a tape deck. You know, can you? We've never heard it. Sort of played out live. Would you play it? And we kind of figured out how to do it. Put it on. It came on about sort of a third away into the tune, but it was What Time Is Love that later got to number one. And you know, that was the moment. But then the real cap of the moment was the next day after we'd had our night of fun and, you know, work and all that. And funny enough, the next night, Phil, the guy who gave us the tent, felt obliged to give it to some punks who spent all night singing "We Hate Acid House," you know, like. And but anyway, there was this other sound system in the Traveller's Field, and it was run by a sound system called Tonka from Brighton, and really, yeah, amazing lot. They preceded us really in many ways, and like, and they were playing just like amazing tunes and all that. And me and Pete, who many of you will have known, who's God bless him, no longer with us, but we were just, you know, the next night we'd been up for God knows how long, and we were just looking down at this amazing scene and all these tribes of people that had existed pre that moment, you know, like all these trendy club kids, all these, you know, all sorts, like the punks, the travellers, you know, every single kind of race, ethnicity, whatever, you know, cultural tribe, whatever, and they were all just united under this one kind of sound. And then this mad guy rides into the dance floor on a horse and trap, and then they start playing the KLF Chill Out album with loads of sort of cows mooing, and you know, it was just that moment, and we just looked at each other and we said, things are never going to be the same after this. And they went, well, you know, the Tino Derek May mix.
Yes.
That was a special tune played at Castlemorton.
Say again. So this is
Sway No the Tino Derek May mix.
Yeah.
It's a long tune, but it's an amazing tune. And then what about New World Order by Testapon? You know, there's two pretty contrasting tunes there, but both meant quite a lot at that time. I mean, there's loads really, but those are two that stick out. Robert Owens, I'll be your friend.